graduated from. They go to 5 medical schools in Monterrey, 3 medical schools in Guadalajara, 1 in San Luis Potosí, 1 in Tampico, there is 1 in Merida, so that continues to be. So after I graduated from medical school, I was working at the Faculty of Medicine in psychopharmacology. I was very interested in pharmacology. And even if when I went to medical school, I wanted to be a surgeon, just because my uncle, my father's brother, was a surgeon, and pediatrics, I found it was too much work or too difficult. So I went to medical school with the idea, well, I want to be a surgeon like my uncle. But I enjoyed so much pharmacology that I became a pharmacologist. Since medical school, I was working for the medical school. And then within pharmacology, I became interested in psychoactive compounds, the chemicals that alter the mind. So my interest goes back even to that time. When I finished medical school, I was planning to go to France. Why? Because my father studied, was very Francophile, and because many of my textbook of anatomy was in French in first year of medical school. In Mexico City Medical School, my textbook of biochemistry was in English, and and the embryology and the anatomy was in French. So you have to learn several languages to study medicine. I mean, if you wanted to be a good doctor, okay? So, however, there was an important incident in my life that made me not go to France or Germany, but instead come to the US. Let me tell you what happened. A little bit of politics. When President Eisenhower was the president of the US, his brother was a doctor, Dr. Eisenhower, and he went to visit Latin American countries, Dr. Eisenhower, and they were very hostile toward him. They threw him rocks and tomatoes and everything. So he came back to his brother and says, "Listen, they don't like us in Latin America." Well, I don't know. So what the president and the State Department in the U.S. did, they said, we should invite some young people from Mexico and from Brazil and from all of the countries where they didn't like Americans or the American government. I would say more the American government. And I was chose. Okay. So the State Department decided to have a program and invite 15 students. 15 medical students from Mexico, 15 engineering students from Brazil, 15 law students from Peru, etc., etc. So I was honored to be one of the chosen to come to this trip paid by the State Department. They treated us very well, and they showed us all of the American hospitals. I mean, the most important American hospitals in Boston, in New York, Chicago, and really from the 15 medical students, from the 5th year of medical school in Mexico, I think 14 of us decided to have our postgraduate training in this country, so that's how I came here. I went to the University of Pennsylvania in Philadelphia, and that's where I graduated as a psychiatrist. Initially, I continued in pharmacology, and then clinical pharmacology, but I became very interested again in mind-altering drugs. So my advisors there said, if you want to study these drugs in humans, you have to become a psychiatrist. So that's why I took the residency in psychiatry. Otherwise, you could not study acid, LSD, marijuana, or any of the amphetamines, or all of these drugs. So then I was already in Philadelphia. I was working there in the downtown medical school, Hahnemann Medical College. So I moved to the university. I was accepted also, was honored to be accepted at the University of Pennsylvania. That's a very good medical school. So that's where I took my residency in psychiatry. furthermore, I knew that the French were the pioneers in psychopharmacology, in the treatment of mental illness. So after finishing my residency in psychiatry in Philadelphia, I said, I have to go to the pioneers. So I got a scholarship from the French government, and from Philadelphia I moved to Paris. So I was at the University of Paris Medical School, Saint-Anne Hospital. They had just, we don't have time for many things that I can tell you, but the French are the ones who invented the medications that began the psychiatric treatment with medications. There was no treatment before Largactil, that was the French medication. So it was a marvelous year that I always recommend here to my residents in psychiatry, to my medical students. Don't miss the opportunity and spend at least 1 or 2 years in Europe, in any country you want. If you don't want to learn another language, I did like to learn French, but if you don't, well, go to England or go to Scotland or Ireland and continue. But it was a wonderful experience to be in France. Here in the outline that Joe gave me says, adversity in your schools and colleges that you encounter. Since I was in Mexico, there is no adversities. The school is free. The tuition in medical school for me, $200 a year. The tuition for my American friends, the ones who were foreigners, who were coming from New York or California, $1,000 a year. Okay, so there is no adversity, and the career is 6 years long. After you finish your 6 years of education, then you have to serve 1 year in what is called medical social service. The Mexican government has for many years has this program that is excellent. It's excellent, and the American Medical Association and the American Society of American Colleges has tried to make it in the US, and they have not been able to do it because we have too many attorneys here, okay? That's the problem. But in Mexico, the government finds how many towns in the whole República Mexicana, how many towns don't have a doctor. So those medical students that are 6 years students, when we finish, we go still 1 year to serve in one town when there is no doctor. That was a wonderful experience too. My first encounter with Texas, because my town was China, Nuevo León, that is very close to the border. China, Nuevo León is northeast of Monterrey, and that was my town. We call it our town because you have to take care of everything. You have to do labor in women, you have to take care of children, you have to take care of people who had accidents. It was also a very good experience, and I wish the American medical schools will do it too. In the US, we have many towns without a doctor. In Texas, because now after 18 years, I am an adopted Texan. And listen, in Texas, we have like 60 counties who don't have